Every man or woman desires to be able to meet his or her needs, and after that, meet the needs of their loved ones. And to do this, they either need a job or a business that can earn them some money. What is the situation in Nigeria in terms of employment or unemployment? The Nigeria Bureau of Statistics says, or put Nigeria's unemployment rate at 5% as of the third quarter of 2023. What's the situation now? Is the government doing anything to change this? Our guest on the show talks about what is being done to create jobs. According to him, over 200,000 jobs have been created in the first year of this administration alone, and the administration is on track to see that more jobs are created. Really? Is that what is needed? Would every Nigerian be satisfied by the time they look at the numbers and what is being done? What about the infrastructure needed to ensure that small businesses are able to thrive? Newsnight sat down for a conversation with the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Job Creation in the Office of the Vice President, Mr. Temitola Johnson. Mr. Temitola Johnson, thank you for sitting with us on Newsnight.
My pleasure.
We'll start off real quick with this figure. I know that your job entails job creation in the Office of the Vice President, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Job Creation. But the Bureau of Statistics, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, has put the unemployment rate in Nigeria at 5%. Now, that some argue that it's not true, but let's leave it at that. That's the Statistics Office, 5%. How would you say you are impacting on that? How are you working to reduce that figure?
Fantastic. So, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics has the mandate to give us whatever figure they have given to us. So there are times that we have been warned that it was skyrocketing. So if they are saying that it's at 5% now, if we believe them when it was higher, we should believe them when it's at 5%. That being said, what we have done as a government is, first things, we've tried to create jobs by reaching the local governments, the rural areas, and how have we done that? As we speak, we have created about 240,000 jobs using the shared hubs. We have done about 10 different clusters. Only last week we were in Benue to launch 2 more clusters. Those 2, we are confident we create an additional 48,000 jobs. Whilst this might seem little, in the eyes of a lot of people, because a nation of about 220 million, and you are saying you have created 240,000 jobs. Mind you that this is within the first 1 year of this administration. But it's also good to be able to have something to point at, that this has been done. There's always room for improvement, and a lot more is in the pipeline to be done.
Okay, so let's step back a bit. This is your second stint in this office. You were with the last administration. Would you say you did so well in the last administration? Or is it that you're looking to improve on whatever you were able to do in the last administration?
So I think I might have impressed, and not knowing that I was being watched, basically. So I might have impressed, and the good thing is that there are a number of decision makers in this current administration who were more or less like guide to me during the last administration. So they followed all I was doing, basically. So, you can't say you've done so much. Because when you come to the point that you think you have done so much, it means that you think you can't improve. I think I got some things right, but I know that there's a lot more that we can do.
Someone says the biggest room is the room for improvement, which is a good thing. But let's look at this. Your job is a very delicate job in the sense that it impacts the electioneering process, whichever way you want to look at it. But for one who is considered one of the youngest in the administration, in government right at the moment, would you say that you're on course? Would you say you're representing the youth in Nigeria as should be? Can the young people in this country look and say, that's one of us, and he's doing well?
Okay, so
this is me asking you to score yourself.
So, I struggle to find out where I belong because I'm 47. Not too many people know that I'm actually 47. So I'm closer to 50 than 40. And I know that there are a lot of young people in this government. There are ministers that are younger than I am. So there are heads of agencies that are way younger than I am. But one thing, that is one of the good things we can actually praise the current president for. He was deliberate about getting youths involved in his government. And now the tar is now on this youth. Do you understand? To ensure that they are being called upon to come and serve. It's not a thing of where the Mr. President or whoever they are reporting to regrets that action. For me, whenever I'm called to serve, I put my all into it. If I'm called to serve for just a day, within that 24 hours of service, I would want to score myself on what I've achieved within that for the 24 hours. So within the 1 year, we have been able to create these 240,400 jobs that we talked about. A lot of people miss out the 400 because 400 jobs, if you lose them, is a big thing. So, and within these 4 years as well, within this 1 year as well, we have also been able to get what you may call a discounted SME fund from Access Bank. We partner with them, a few private sector, to ensure that whilst we have not been able to get to our target of single-digit loan, we've been able to give SMEs funds through our partners at 15%. So what we did was to reach out to the private sector to say, use some of your funds to give to our SMEs at a discounted rate. We pushed so hard for less than 10%, but we find ourselves where we're at 15% right now, but that's 50 billion of their own fund. 50 billion of their own fund. So to convince a commercial bank to commit to that, you must have some sort of pedigree and a history that they can sort of trust.
There's during the campaigns, and I asked this question carefully. During the campaigns, in the last administration, they counted 1 million jobs every year. And during these campaigns also, there were those figures that were being touted as per, okay, these are the number of jobs we're going to put out every year.
For me, the word, because I come from the private sector, I'm able to achieve through partnership. Because in government, you are never really able to do anything by yourself. You need both the private sector and fellow and public sector partnership. I'm associated to Mr. President on job creation and MSMEs in the office of Vice President. I have about 26 partners within the Ministry of Trade and Investment, outside the Ministry of Trade and Investment, such as the Ministry of Health, from the Ministry of Finance. I've got private sector inside the country. I've like some of the commercial banks and the NASME. I've got partners in AU, that's African Union. I've got partners in Europe as well. So why I had to spread my tentacles is that we're in a world or a generation where now, if you want to cook a meal, and maybe I have the pot, you have the rice, and somebody might tell you that, okay, I have gas cooker that we can use to cook this food. So it's now getting to a world of partnership. So in as much as we've not hit the 1 million mark that we set for ourselves, but it gives joy to see that at least we are on the right track. For me, it's not about hitting that 1 million very quickly and losing those jobs very quickly. Because you can create jobs. There are jobs that you create. Listen, if it is to create, we can create certain jobs that will last for 90 days. What happens after 90 days? I'm particular and deliberate. The government, the president is very deliberate about creating jobs that will last. those people. So if it's going to take us a year and a half or 2 years to get up to 500,000 jobs, 500,000 sustainable jobs, then so be it.
But you mentioned something earlier about reaching out to the commercial banks to give some kind of facility to your small and medium-scale enterprises.
Yep.
What about the guarantee of payment of those? Is that not putting too much pressure on these commercial banks? Not just the commercial banks, on those who are accessing those facilities, the small and medium-scale enterprises. Are they not taking on too much pressure? I mean, you have institutions that could have given them less than 15%.
Okay, so
or are you looking at let's race against time as against let's manage pressure?
No. I think President Tinubu always emphasizing in doing it well as opposed to doing it first. Get it done well. I think it scores you higher if you get it done well, as opposed to I did it and you did it wrongly. So with regards to the risk factor, you see, we have, like I said, we have secured the services of some of our private sector for a 50 billion facility, which is not ours. It's not for the federal government. It is not ours. But we as a government are currently in discussion with state governments, private sector, to have what you call a de-risking fund. In the next few weeks, this will be brought to light. What the de-risking fund will do is that for any serious-minded state, you bring a certain amount of fund. Some of our commercial bank partners and some of the banks, like maybe the Bank of Industry, Nexim Bank, Bank of Agri, the Development Bank of Nigeria will match. If a state brings $1 billion, any of those banks will match the state with that $1 billion. Then the federal government, or we are encouraging the federal government to match with another $1 billion. Now, this fund will not be given to the states or the federal government. It will be managed by any of those banks. It could be Access Bank, Wema Bank, Bank of Industry, whichever. So what it will do is that it will guarantee MSMEs in that particular state. We can use state X, Lagos. It will guarantee MSMEs in Lagos, say for instance, access to those funds at a single digit. Why we are so certain that we can give that loan at single digits is that now it's no longer me as the bank giving out just my funds. If I give my money to you and you don't pay back, I have federal government 1 billion. I have state government 1 billion. So it's more like an insurance fund that I have. So I can give it to you at a certain percent, which is single digits, 7 to 9%, knowing that if you default, the state has said, this is my fund. If A defaults, take from part of my fund to recoup.
So this defunding, de-risking fund, interesting. I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing of something like this. But how would this impact the rural businesses, the economic situation in the rural areas, where a lot of those young people are looking to come to the cities? There's more light and they can set up businesses, barbing salons and all of that in the cities. Are you considering how to keep them in the rural areas?
So if you look at these hubs we're talking about, the proposal to Mr. President is considering it. We're saying every local government should have at least one. Every local government should have at least one, based on your comparative advantage. Also, this old de-risking fund, it's not just for the big boys. It's not just for those that want to access 20 million, 10 million. It starts from as much as low as maybe 500,000. Some of those people in those rural areas that have those businesses, their total portfolio might not be more than 150. So, and don't forget that in the law of borrowing, if you have 30 naira, if you are worth 30 naira, they shouldn't give you more than 10 naira. Because if you are worth 30 naira, you will use 10 naira to service yourself. You must always have savings of another 10 naira. So, if you have a portfolio of maybe 200,000 naira, you can go and collect whatever it is that you want to collect. That will not, say for instance, be an issue for you to repay. But this fund, the way it's been structured is that as low as 500,000, can be collected. Don't also forget that the likes of Bank of Industry already give out money such as 100,000 naira, 50,000 naira to nano businesses as loans. So they do that already. What we're trying to do now is to ensure that things like this cannot be done by just one entity. We want to ensure that everywhere you look around and you require a facility, there's somebody, an institution that is willing to give you that facility at a good tenure.
You know, I'm thinking that this is targeted at knocking off the loan sharks who are taking advantage of the small businesses a great deal. And if that comes to, it will be quite impressive. Yeah. But the Nigerian, I don't want to use that phrase. No, there is, someone will say, Nigeria has happened to that business and all. In terms of that, the cost of production, the cost of running a business. So the person collects this facility, supposedly to buy raw materials. Let's just say the person makes shoes. I mean, I know a young man who makes fantastic slippers in Cross River State. I know another person who does that in Lagos. But he collects this facility, and by the time he buys fuel for his generator, pays the local government taxes and all of that, instead of buying a gallon of the gum he needs to run, he buys just 2 liters. And then you still expect him to pay back that facility at that rate. So is it just enough to help the SMEs, but without this infrastructure they need? How is that working out? Where you create the jobs, let's say you help that SME to start to expand his business and he employs 2-3 people sustainably. But he's not able to run that business because there's no infrastructure. Isn't that a challenge that you're having to deal with?
So you're right, because in the world of today, you have infrastructure on one end, and you have how to sustain your business on the other end. And you know what? They work pari passu, hand in hand. What the government is doing, if you notice, the president has been deliberate about infrastructure. You can tell that there's a lot of revamping of infrastructure going on all across the country. He's been deliberate because he wants to leave a legacy. If nothing, this infrastructure, I focused on infrastructure, basically. Now, you know what those infrastructure will do is that if you have, with infrastructure, you have made it easier for somebody who is transporting his goods from point A to point B to pay less. And for instance, goods are meant to come from Lagos to Abuja. And if it was going to take, with bad infrastructure, if it was going to take, say, maybe a day, can be reduced. And aside from that, the total cost of getting those goods from point A to point B would be reduced because it will have an effect in the person's business as well.
So is it this infrastructure that you consider in setting up the hubs?
Now, what we have done with those hubs is that we've ensured that most of the hubs have at least their solar panel, then they are solar powered. And so that you are guaranteed at least 8 hours light a day. So the funds that you'll be spending on going to get for your generator, we'll try to ensure that you don't have to spend that. So every shared hubs we've done, we've tried to ensure that there's at least 8 hours of solar powered guaranteed every day. When that goes off, there is usually an automatic generator. So we just want to ensure that we want to save you something as an SME. If it's just that cost of buying a 2,000 naira for every day, let's save that.
So you're saying it is not the infrastructure that determines where the shared hubs are located?
Not necessarily.
So what determines how you locate those shared hubs?
Now, what determines how we locate, what the most important determinant of that is the sort of clusters. When we see a shared hub where there are shoemakers, for instance, a lot of shoemakers, there was one that was launched in Ubenike. The reason why because we went there, we saw over 4,000 people that make shoes, locally with their hands. And it just occurred to me that, listen, this guy that is making a shoe in 2 hours, if we deploy certain equipment, he will make 500 shoes in 1 day. It means that guy, even if he decides that that's the 500 shoes he makes in a day is enough for him for that week, he can go and sell those shoes, make his profits come back. So we can reduce manual labor with the sort of equipment we brought in. And I was told that In Ubunike, where this thing was set up, the total revenue shot up by almost 156% by the government. So when we find people, say for instance, a cluster of fashionistas who, for instance, just have the basic sewing machine. So people think fashion is just, sewing machine is basic. Some of our MSMEs might be able to afford that. But what do you have? A monogram machine? A monogram machine is what you use to inscribe things on your clothes and stuff. There's buttonhole machine. There are machines that can make camouflage for military uniforms. There are machines that can do caps. So those are not cheap machines. An average monogram machine, a 4-head monogram machine, an average one is about 25 million naira. How many Nigerian MSMEs can afford that? So those are the sort of equipment. Once we see SMEs in such a cluster, we decide, okay, we will need to set up in discussion with the state government. We tell them we need to set up a shared hub here so that these SMEs can actually use this shared hub to sort of
enhance their business,
businesses and production.
But there's a bit about upskilling rather. Those SMEs, is that part of what happens in the shared hubs? Do they get some kind of training so that their businesses grow, or you just put up the structure, bring in the equipment, and you leave them to run there?
No.
So how do these shared hubs work?
Fantastic. A regular FGN state shared hub, it will encompass training. Now we have a partnership with ITF, the Industrial Training Fund, to now officially get involved. Usually, sometimes the state will tell you that they have those that can train. So it will involve, because there are already people that don't need training. So there are people that don't need training, there are people that need training. What we just commissioned in Benue State, the governor made provision for not just the hub where the equipment were housed. He also made provision for a training center just by the side. So they will be going to go and train those that are not already fashion designers, that want to be fashion designers. Because, you see, if you do not train these people and you give them this equipment, it's like fetching water in baskets. So you most likely not get the targeted results, basically.
So,
and in those facilities, we're now beginning to introduce what you call one-stop shops. You have SON there, that standard organization of Nigeria. You have NAFDAC. If your issue is that you need some funding at single digits, then there's the Bank of Industry. You have the CAC if you are running a business that is not even registered. Then if you need to know end to end of how to start a business, A to Z, Business 101, you have SMEDA. You have all these agencies.
Within that?
Yes, we make provision. So Benue now will be housing the first one within this government. Within that, but the provision has been made, and that will be set up within the next few weeks.
I was asking about I wanted to ask you how these hubs you're setting up are fusing with what's already existing. And I used Aba as an example. Aba is known, area market, for instance, is known to have shoemakers, have clothes, fashion clothes makers, has all manner of things in the area market. Let's just say you're setting up a hub in Aba. How would that hub, or are the hubs designed in any way to relate, or how do they fuse with what's already existing?
Okay, so we took cognizance of this. So what we've done, in short, the greatest example is what we have in Lagos. There's a massive fashion hub in Lagos, Aladi Market. So there used to be something similar. So you know who did the training? The Lagos State government got the already established private sector to train the one that the federal government and the state government did. And you know what? They've been coexisting. So when the Lagos State government, say for instance, asks that all the uniforms within Lagos State and the Lagos State administrations and should go to the private to go to the ones we commission, when they are extremely busy, guess where they take them to? To the private sector. So it's a very healthy, constructive competition.
So when you build like structures, you build a house, or you build houses, or shops for these people to sit and work. Let's say the tailors, for instance. Are they paying the government rent? Are they paying some kind of rent, or they are there for? Is there how do you say that? Is there a period of moratorium where they have to recoup and then start paying a certain thing, or is it completely free for them?
So,
that's these hubs that you're setting up.
So I must emphasize that some of these hubs are built by the state government.
Okay.
We, for instance, get the equipment end to end, basically. For instance, like the one in Benue, it was 100% built by the state government. Our own duty was to ensure that we equipped it with what they had told us was their comparative advantage, which was fashion, and ICT, So, and with regards to your specific question about whether they are paying rent or not paying, these hubs are set as the way they are structured. They are set to be a helping hand or like an incubation center for a lot of these MSMEs. From the hubs, a lot of SMEs have gone to get their own stores, have gone to get their own. So what the state governments do, the state governments are usually very deliberate. They give contracts, small contracts to some of these people in this facility. So it is expected that after 2 years, you should not be in that hub. You should have moved. We want success stories. And we always emphasize this when we're dealing with any of the state government, that we want success stories. Look at what we did in Ogun State. Those 200 refurbished market that the vice president went to launch in February. Mr. President directed that all the stores, all the stores should be given to the MSMEs free. No pay, don't pay any money. So by February this year, at least, an MSME should be able to pay a discounted rent next year. So it serves as a form of soft landing. It gives you somewhere to start life, basically. But the state government, because there's a handshake between the states and the federal, we let the states know that these are the intentions. This is why we are setting up these hubs. So that if there are 400 people here, if there are, for instance, they come to work here, there must be some outstanding ones. Give them jobs. So it is, once you continue to do this, because they have virtually everything they need to be successful within that hub.
Interesting. So how do you ensure that all of these things are sustained? I mean, in terms of monitoring and evaluation, how do you monitor and evaluate the progress made by these hubs and indeed the SMEs that are there?
So we look at the increased IGR within those spaces. Then we look at the jobs created vis-a-vis numbers of employed labor. So for instance now, I know a state that said their own hub generated, was it 6 point something? No, sorry, about 650 something million within a quarter, basically. So within a quarter, so that's
the hub, everything, yes, all the activities.
Yes, within a quarter. So now that will mean about 220 something per month, basically. But that's a big state. That's a state that whatever it is that they chose is viable. So, and also, we also do, between the states and the federal government, there's a close every quarter M&E. So they give us what they say is their own M&E evaluation on what has happened so far. Tell us the impacts. We do our own independent one. Then we now have a private sector, not states, not federal, then a private individuals or sectors that will go and do an M&E. So within the year, we have 3 M&E, one from states, one from federal, one from the entire private sector. Yeah. Okay. And we just look at least there must be something that will pick from the state that is positive. There must be something that will pick that's not so positive. So maybe what will come from the federal government will tell us how to deal with that, basically. But we keep an eye on these things. We keep what we do for the first 2 years of establishing those hubs. The federal government sits on the board of those hubs. I'm usually I sit on one of those on the different hubs too, so that we're able to monitor, basically what's going on. So, are we on the right track? Should we just stop what we're doing and move on to something else? But what we are being told so far by all the activities is that we're on the right track. But what we need to do is expand the clusters. Now we're going into things like I said, hair making for ladies, skin care for ladies. That will require speaking to specialists in those areas. So come and train these people, speak to them, then we'll buy them kits. And with those kits, those ladies
startup kids, and all.
Yeah, those startup kids, the ladies, the guys involved in that space can just go and earn a living for themselves.
But the question of certification, do they get some kind of certification? I mean, is it enough to just train them and then they stay in the hub? Or is there some kind of certification they get?
A lot of them get certifications there. We are toying. We just had a meeting yesterday with the Bakers Association, and then we are toying with a bakery. So what we do is that we look for an association of any hub we want to do. Sit down with them, let them give us end-to-end on how they think we should go about it. We get them involved. You know, now the fashion is on autopilot for us. ICT is on autopilot for us. We've done a code room somewhere in Ondo. I didn't even mention this. We've done a code room in Ondo. We've done an ICT hub in Ondo. We're about to set up a press center where you can go, you want to print anything, you want to make, they make billboard size printers. So we're about to set that up in Ondo as well. So we've toyed with so many things. And once we know we have excelled in them, we are good with them, we continue. We're beginning to toy with, we're beginning to look at bakery, for instance, you know, because that's another space that can generate a lot of jobs, you know. And like I said earlier on, the skincare thing, that the wellness sector is actually huge as well. So and there's the mechanic workshop, which we know will do so well in a place like Oyo State. It will do so well in Lagos. It will do so well in maybe, it will do so well in Borno, Sokoto, and Kaduna. We are toying with these mechanics.
I mean, they don't drive cars and all of that in southern Nigeria, in Port Harcourt, in Calabar, in Uyo, in Enugu, in Okigwe, in what's that part now? Yeah.
What I'm saying, when I mention those states, is that these are. I mean, it will do so well in those states, inter Allah. So let's leave it. It means that amongst other states, it will do so well. You know why? Because we are going to have an end-to-end. You drive into this place, it washes your car. You understand? You're not using your hand, it washes your car, you know, dries it. Basically speaking, you move out. If you need to sort out your tire, we are on track to get the first one done before the end of the year. And it will be launched, and the entire country will see. You see, the essence of these hubs is to touch the common man. You know, President Tinubu's joy, he says, to see a common man just feed himself, be able to take care of his family. So the tax he has given someone like me is go out there, because the VP will tell you that the president said, just go out there and try to touch lives. Where you run into issues and you need help, come back and we'll see what we can do.
Are you actually going out? That means we shouldn't. No wonder we hardly see you in the office. You know how long we've been chasing you for this interview. But be that as it may, what's the acceptability level like? I mean, the young people, the young graduates, and even the older graduates, are they open to this, or are they concerned about the extras that come with being an entrepreneur?
Well,
the negative extras, the weight that comes.
The truth is, I must admit that there's been a bit of apathy when you sell the message of entrepreneurship. The believability is quite low, but as a government, your job is to ensure that those you govern believe in your vision. The work of government and government officials is to attempt to turn a no situation to a maybe. Then within a few days, turn that maybe to a yes. And that is what I deliberately try to do every time. And I always tell people that this is what I have done. So I'm not coming from a space of never done anything. And when I said I had these things, there are people, whether big, young, small, in big places or not in big places, that know me. They can testify to the fact that they ate my shawarma. They can testify to the fact that they saw my bottled water. So I'm a testimony There are people that will say, oh, we used to buy his water. We know where his factory was. In Antony, for instance, in Lagos. So there are people that will tell you that we know where his shawarma store was, somewhere off Adeola Dekun. So there are people that will tell you that, yes, we've seen. So sometimes it's easier when someone who has been through that space comes up and say, this is what I am. You know, people just generally just, they align with you when they know that you are coming.
You've worn their shoes.
You've worn their shoes. You know, but we'll continue to try, because as a government, you can't give up on those you govern. And the truth is, people, maybe we should even introduce, I think we've actually done this. Successive governments have tried to introduce entrepreneurship and business in our curriculum. We should emphasize it. We should emphasize it. It should start from 100 level. In short, it should be a GST course. It should be a GST course.
Are you sure it shouldn't start from the primary school level?
Well, you know, I think it should start more from like a formative age. You know, the primary school level. You might not have that understanding. More from the formative age. I think, it should be a general study. It should be a GST course. Just let everybody understand the rudiments of owning a business. You know, there are countries that you are going to serve in the military, and they'll start letting you know that you are going to serve in the military from secondary school. So you start preparing your mind that you must go to, just like the way we have the NYSC, where you know that you have to go and serve your nation. So that's how we should start treating entrepreneurship early, so that people start preparing. There are a lot of very creative Nigerians. If you look at how dexterous Nigerians are with their hands, you will be marveled. So we need to sort of bring in that believability. It needs to start early. It's not something that should be done out of frustration. I don't have what to do. I don't have a job. Okay, let me go into this. No, it should be a passion. You know, when it's a passion, even when you're not making money, you are comfortable waking up in the morning, going to work. You know, you're just comfortable.
You know, some will say we should not be chasing entrepreneurship as much as chasing intrapreneurship, so that those who are working can also be contributing to the organization as well, and then partnerships. But the question of integrity amongst business partners in Nigeria comes to play. The laws, are there laws backing dispute resolutions? When we have an issue, maybe we agree to do a business and it fails, what do I have? Am I sure I'll get justice? All of these things come to play here. So in setting up, in creating the jobs, people are concerned about justice and equity.
So if you've been following what the special advisor on ease of doing business, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, has been doing, you know, she's been trying to set up a framework that works for this country. The sort of framework that will work in England, the sort of framework that will work in Canada, the sort of framework that will work in Ghana, that will work anywhere in the world. She's been trying. I know, because I've worked with her for close to 9 years. So I know she's been trying, putting in efforts in that space to ensure that ease of doing business is a thing that Nigeria is known for. You know, we have a business agreement. A business agreement is a business agreement. You default, then there's a channel for trial. You should go and seek justice. When you seek justice, and then whatever it is that it said as it's permitted for as punishment, you go serve your punishment. People, there must be consequences for every action. So I know that she's tried in that regard, and I know that we're getting positive results. Like I said, just like in every space in government, governance and government is you don't get all the results with a government. You know, there's always room for you to improve. Somebody must have done something good. You can come in and make it better. Somebody that has done something fabulous, you can come in and people will think, oh, okay, we thought this was good. This is better. So you must always strive to excel as a government person. You must always strive to excel.
But in all of these things, good things that you talked about, your activities, how busy you are and all of that. But what are those challenges that you have had to deal with? because the Nigerian space is not a pleasurable space for the public servants. Nigerians are, let me not use the word, Nigerians are vexed. They just want something, they just want things to get better. So what are the challenges they've had to deal with?
Yeah, let me start. You say Nigerians are vexed, they just want things to get better, and rightly so. Rightly so, because Nigeria has so much potential. When you grow up and see a child that is meant to be coming first in class, and this child is coming seventh, and you know that you can come first in class, so you get vexed with that child and try to push that child. Now, with regards to challenges, I think one of the greatest challenges I've had is believability. Nigerians hardly believe a government person, but that is gradually changing, because once you set in with integrity, once you, for instance, we handled a scheme called the Survival Fund under the President Buhari regime, and I think with that scheme, we're able to tell people that government can conceptualize a scheme, execute that scheme, and there'll be integrity. So once you are able to stay on the line of integrity, basically, I think people will believe you. Then one of the challenges, sometimes, for instance, I know that for the sort of activities I'm involved in, you might need some sort of increased, you might need some sort of budgeting. If there was funding from government, it will be a bit easier. For instance, the issue of de-risking funds, it's got to be something that we'll do year in, year out. Single-digit facility for SMEs should not be, it should be a no-brainer. It should be a target for a nation that had 41.6 million MSMEs pre-COVID and now 35.4 MSMEs after COVID. We should ensure that single-digit access loan for these people at a tenure of not less than 3 to 5 years with moratorium, depending on what you're collecting. It could be 6 months, it could be 1 year.
In doing all of this now, what, in terms of job creation, what challenges have you had to deal with in terms of job creation? And then, is there room for international partnerships and collaborations?
In the job creation space, I think with all we have done and achieved, we can achieve better with international collaborations. We can make things easier. We can achieve better with digitalization. We can achieve better, and there's room for improvement. We can achieve better with even partnership with neighboring African Union, for instance. Expand the scope of partnership. It's easier because a country that, for instance, is very skilled in a particular space, if they can bring that space, the training to us, it can further improve our capacity to deliver within that ecosystem. So, in as much as I would say we've done a noble job within the first 1 year, I would also say that there's room for massive improvement. Especially partnering with the international organizations and international bodies.
As we wind down here, if you had a word for Nigerians, public servants and the led, that's the leaders and the led, if you had a word of advice, what would that word be?
Let me start with the led. As a privileged public servant, I know that it's not easy. It's not been easy. But also, as a privileged public servant, I am aware and involved in certain discussions, and I'm aware and involved in certain activities, whose gestation period will happen very soon. Things will be better, especially within the MSME ecosystem. Once you conceptualize something, it takes a bit of time for the results to be seen. You understand? It might look like we are taking a lot of time, but it is better we get these things done properly. You know, you don't want to open the eyes of somebody that is blind, then all of a sudden you close it back. You are looking for trouble. So we have to get these things done properly. But I understand that timing is also a factor. And as for those that are leading, people like us that are leading, people like us that occupy this privileged position called by Mr. President to help him actualize some of his visions, we should actually do so. Do so in the sense that when you find yourself in a privileged position as this, you must understand that any other person could be occupying that position. Whatever it is that the president and vice president, in some cases, might ask of you to do, or help them resolve, or help them achieve, that should be a priority. Because when some of us do not carry out what our activities we're supposed to carry out, we are bringing discredit to Mr. President, basically. So we are supposed to be the tool for him to very quickly achieving some of his set objectives, and we should try and ensure that we do that. And to be honest, I will say that I know a lot of very, very, very creative, dynamic.
But is politicking not a problem in itself? I mean, isn't no politicking that has distracted some of the public servants from doing the things that they have to do?
But you can also say that there are a lot of public servants that have not allowed politicking to distract them. I know a number of ministers that are focused on the job. I know a lot of agency heads that are focused on the job. You know, you cannot remove politicking from government and governance, but it is striking that balance that is very key, basically. So if you do your politicking and you do not allow your politicking overtake the assignment you are giving, then you'll be on your way to achieving success.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wanted to tell you that
all good things will have to come to an end sometime, and this conversation has to end here at this point in time. We want to thank you for letting us be a part of your day. Just let us hear from you. Send us a tweet, send us a mail. Our handles are right there on your screen, and we would love to hear from you. Also, you can go back and watch this conversation again. Just go to channelstv.com/podcast or youtube.com/channelsweb. You see the Newsnight playlist and just binge on the conversations. We'll bring you a fresh edition, same time. Okay, don't go away. Bye-bye.